Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's a great pleasure to see this packed room. What an awesome library it is, right, Jim? I mean, you seen a library like this?
No.
I want to welcome Mike Farrell, who is an 8-time Emmy winner. He's the masterpiece, the storyteller, the producer that put that together. And he's a Toronto Blue Jays fan who's missing Game 1 World Series.
Does anyone have an update? What is the score?
Just a couple innings.
We have a score. I think it was zeros.
All right, good.
I want to welcome Jeremy Schaap, who is a national treasure, a local treasure, a good friend, and the best sports reporter on the planet.
Thank you.
And one more round of applause for an overachiever, if I may say. An inspiration, if I'm allowed to say that as well, and quite frankly, one of the great athletes of all time and a great human being, Jim Abbott. We want this to be a conversation with all of you, so we do usually wait till the end for questions, but I want them as we go. So please, if you have a question, make it part of this conversation. Right over there to the microphone is all we ask, and we will weave them throughout this conversation. Please, we want you to be a part of this. Jim, how many times have you seen that film?
Not enough to stop crying.
I asked because he was crying during the film, and he's still got tears in his eyes. Do you understand now why you are and always will be an inspiration?
I don't know. You know, I think when you're playing baseball and or doing whatever you're doing in life, I don't think you really appreciate how much people are watching and the impact that you can make. And this film happened a long time after I got done playing, and I knew the interactions. I was very familiar in the clubhouses and the stadiums around the country, but I didn't really realize how profound of an impact you can make. And it's not just Major League Baseball, it's whatever we do in life, whether it's being a parent or your coworkers, whatever. There's just a lot of people watching, and you can make a big difference. And I didn't truly appreciate that when I was playing, and this film hits me in ways every single time I watch it, how profound that is.
It seemed like the tributes there at the end is what hit you the most. The words from Tracy, from Shaq Griffin. Why?
Well, Tracy lives in did anybody notice how much Canadian influence is in that film? Mike Farrell.
A lot.
I mean,
Mike's Canadian.
That just keeps hitting me over and over again, this Blue Jays fan to my left here. But, she lives so far away. And to me, that was a letter that came to Anaheim Stadium. It was a beautiful picture of her as a young girl. And to see her come to life on film, it's just startling and heartbreaking in all the right ways, and it just means a lot.
Well, all of them had you to look up to, though. Who did you have to look up to?
That's a great question, because the information didn't spread like it does now. There weren't the Instagram or the Twitter or the stories. So I can't honestly say that I knew of another one-handed person, let alone pitcher or athlete. I'd heard of Pete Gray a little bit, who played in the 40s, but I didn't have that, and it wasn't the focus anyway. It was, I wanted to be a Detroit Tiger. I wanted to be Nolan Ryan. I wanted to be Jack Morris, or it was funny. I saw the numbers that I was wearing through the years, 3, and they're all representative of somebody. I wore number 3 because I loved Alan Trammell, and I wore those numbers because of people that I looked up to growing up.
I have to ask you, Jerry, one stupid, superficial question.
Oh,
I'm bold to keep
my
Jeremy's
specialty.
work at a minimum tonight, but I'm asking for a friend. How do you get a private screening of a film at Yankee Stadium? I know everyone out there was wondering.
That was all Mike's doing. I was as shocked as anyone else. That the Yankees, I think it's fair to say, were very supportive of the project. But it was an interesting process, right? And that interview took place in the summer of 2023.
Mike, what surprised you in making this film? You knew a lot about Jim. You certainly learned a lot making it.
I think it was just the impact that he had, right? Like, I came to this project as like, it was 30 years since Jim had thrown the no-hitter, and I always felt like the no-hitter was one of the craziest and greatest achievements in sports history, and truthfully, undercovered to a degree in the modern age. And so I was more attempting initially to do like, let's look back at this incredible achievement. What surprised me was the widespread impact of that achievement and his career on people with disabilities, people in the limb-different community, people that just face challenges in general in life. So I think the surprising part was how that resonated at the time and continues to do so an entire generation removed from the accomplishment.
Same question, Jeremy. What surprised you?
I think it is the widespread impact of Jim's achievement and how in the moment, Jim's talked about not appreciating it. He was trying to fashion a career in Major League Baseball, which he did very successfully. He wasn't focusing on the impact. He was having the meetings, he was spending all that time. I did stories at the time about Jim's impact. I remember going upstate New York to do a story about a boy at that time with a limb difference. My father's voice, you hear in there, Schaap doing that story about that boy, which Mike came to a few times. That gets me every time when I hear that. So I was covering it, but I still didn't fully appreciate the significance, the meaning, the impact. And of course, it's different now. I'm 56. I have a different perspective on it. Hopefully you've gained, as you get older, you gain some wisdom, appreciation for the things that are really important and what might not have been as immediately apparent then, you can appreciate more now. But this was really Mike's idea. Let's go back. Let's tell Jim's story the way that deserves to be told. And I think that's what's really significant here.
What surprised me was the miraculous nature of that no-hitter, Jim. I mean, it wasn't just the stats that Jeremy reeled off. You had three guys who hit 1,500 career home runs. Three guys, Tommy, Manny, and Albert Bell, 1,500. They also hit 275 as a team. That's 10 points better than any team in the league this year. And you went 11-14 that year with a 4.37 ERA. Not your best stuff. Who was with you that day? How do you explain it?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, as you guys saw, just the fielding, the defense was just incredible that day. Bernie Williams making that catch in center field. Wade Boggs diving and catching that ball in the 7th inning. Everybody on down the line was just terrific. The catcher that day, Matt Noakes. I was effectively wild in the strike zone, may have produced more hits, but it just came together in ways. What really touches me about that, and you said it, I think, in the documentary, is like, it's hard to tell the big story. It's hard to encapsulate everything, which Mike, I can't thank you enough for trying to do. But that game, it gave me a chance to say, for kids out there who are different, or you might do things differently, you don't just the goal doesn't always just have to be to participate. You can succeed. You can do it just as well as anybody else. You can be the best at what you do. And so I guess that's, in that way, that's what surprised me. That's what I cherish about that game, that it gives, it's a moment to encapsulate the story. And so I cherish September 4th.
I also didn't realize kids 32 years later are still inspired and still coming up and getting your autograph. So that tells a lot. Yes, sir, you have the first question.
Yeah, thank you. In the part of the film where you were called an underachiever by the reporter, the first thought that came to my mind was finally you're being categorized as normal, you're being categorized with everyone else. Was that a significant moment in your life?
Yeah, thank you for recognizing that. Yeah, Jack Curry, we made up, we're friends to this day. But,
Still covering the Yankees?
He's still covering the Yankees, and yeah, to be called an underachiever really hurt. It did hurt in that moment. But I never wanted to use my hand as an excuse. And in that, I did it. And I regret that. And all those stories that you've seen, the Nick Newells, the Shaquem Griffin, they refuse to let the circumstances of their life become an excuse. And that's a standard I try to hold myself to. And we all will allow it. We all will allow the excuse to creep into our thinking. Well, I had this going against me, or it wasn't fair. But I believe that moment encapsulated a different standard, in making the most of what we have been given, no matter what is facing you.
Thank you for the question. Jim, this ain't no Flint, Michigan, if you haven't noticed. I love the sound, but we are a long way from Flint. And one of the concerns I hear from parents all over town is they don't notice the same grit and determination and grind as the prior generation, maybe kids from Flint. And I'm always curious with someone like you, what fueled you? What drove you? Was it part Flint? Was it your parents, or was it all innate?
I think a lot of it was environment. Flint was a tough town. No quarter was given. I wouldn't change that in any way, shape, or form. But you could prove yourself. There was a pathway. By doing well, by getting in there, getting your nose bloodied a little bit, and coming back and not giving up. And like I said, I keep coming back to these interactions that I've had with parents, with kids with disabilities and limb difference. And the only time I ever worry, and forgive me for saying that, I'm no parent psychologist, is when they protect their kids a little too much. When having one hand or having a limb difference is the entirety of their relationship to what they do in life. And that scares me. My parents didn't do that. My parents pushed me out there onto the playground, and if I came back and I failed, they pushed me back out there again. And there wasn't a lot of, they were loving and they were amazing parents, but they didn't protect me from getting hurt.
I can't help but wonder if, as your daughter calls it, that little hand fueled you. Did you ever wonder what it'd been like if you had two hands? Would you have ever played Major League Baseball? I know that's a bizarre question, but I can't help but wonder. Have you?
My hand is who I am. It is. Tim Brown, who is so great in that film, who I wrote a book with, writing that book helped me to understand that this is who I am. I didn't always like it. It wasn't always perfect, but I know 100% that my hand took me to places I wouldn't have gone without it. It pushed me, it drove me, and it took me to Yankee Stadium. It took me to the major leagues. And so I'm thankful for that challenge that it presented. Even through those lonely times, even through the bullying, even through some of the teasing on a playground, this is who I am. And I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you all if it weren't for this.
I had the opportunity, yes, please. Young man, go ahead.
Mike's a little high.
Got it.
Got it. What did you do when kids bullied you?
I went back and I found my friends who didn't bully me, first of all. It was very difficult. It was difficult to hear mean words, to hear, to be called things I didn't like to be called. But I found what I love to do in life. I found baseball. I found sports. And I would go shoot baskets for hours. And I would dream of myself being in successful situations. And then I'd go back the next day, and their words didn't hurt quite as much. Right? I would imagine myself being successful and working hard. And every time I came back, every time it hurt and came back next day, it hurt a little bit less. And then the next day, it hurt a little bit less. And all of a sudden, I found that I had the strength not to let somebody else's words affect how I felt about myself. And it takes time. It's not easy. And you got to stick with it, and you can't quit. But you can overcome what anybody else's words might mean to them. They don't have to mean anything to you.
I had the opportunity to interview a double amputee just yesterday by the name of Jessica Long, the most decorated Paralympic athlete of all time. She's won 31 medals, 18 gold. And like you, her parents thrust her right into every sport imaginable. At 18 months, here she is here, lost both legs at 18 months. She played 7 different sports: gymnastics, biking, ice skating, you name it. And I said, didn't they ever think of taking the easy way out and math club or chess club or whatever it may be? You could have been a runner, you could have been a javelin thrower, discus, anything that took an easy path. You were a quarterback, a punter, by the way, which the film didn't mention, and a pitcher, the hardest positions in all of sports. Why?
That's a great question. Well, I can always throw things. I mean, I was good at throwing things. And so I gravitated to the positions that allow me to do that. I don't know. I don't know what calls to us. I don't know what our passions are. But those passions saved me in a lot of ways, you know, and maybe because they were challenging in and of themselves. I just think it's so important to find what it is that you love in this world. And more than anything, I know I really wanted to fit in. I know I really wanted to be on a team. I know I really wanted acceptance and friendship. But finding what you love in this world, if it's filmmaking, if it's telling stories, if it's journalism, those are the things that get you up in the morning. Whatever it is that you think about first thing in the morning, whatever it is you think about before you go to bed, follow those paths, listen to them. You know, and truly that was my journey, and that's what brought me here tonight.
On that note, Jeremy, what do you want this audience, all the audiences, to take away from this film?
Well, I think it's what we've been talking about, Dave. I think it's what Jim says so eloquently in the film. When he's sitting there at the table with Tim Meade, and they're looking at some of the letters that have been saved for 35 years from parents, from kids, from grandparents. He says it's about the impact that one person can make, how one person can change the world. And you know, not just by their example, but by doing the right thing, by writing back, by going to all those meetings, by, you know, as Tracy says, you know, however she puts it, it's beautiful, lighting all those lights around the world. I mean, that's it.
Same question. I know it's tough to follow Jeremy Schaap, but...
Sure.
I'll do my best. Yeah, I think it's the last line of the film that, for me, like what Jim said, which was that you can do things differently and do them just as well, you know? And I think that's a universal message. And I also think that you don't have to be missing a limb, you don't have to be limb different, you don't have to have a disability. It's just any challenge in life. I think your perspective on that challenge shapes how you approach it. And I think that Jim is such a shining example of that. And for me, that's the lesson that I take away from interacting with him, is that, like, you don't have to let external circumstances define your journey. Your own internal perspective can flip that on its head, and you can be on a path that you never expected.
I do think you could try to put yourself in Jim's shoes, and I did this earlier today. Thanks, Jim. I tried to tie my damn shoes with one hand and a fist. 40 minutes later, I threw the shoe, and I was done. So kids, I recommend, I'm serious about this. Tomorrow, if you want to know what this man went through, try to tie your shoes with one hand and a fist. And then next time you're out there on the baseball field or the football field or gymnastics and you're going through something tough, think about what Jim did. He faced the best hitters in Major League Baseball with one hand. Yes, sir.
So, nice segue. I want to appreciate the legacy that the Schaap journalists have brought to all of us. Yeah. And my wife and I wanted to appreciate, too, the starting the film with the shoe tying motif and then building with the chapters along the way. Very, very powerful, and then ending with a legacy. So, excellent job, again. The question for Jim, if you can put your coaching cap on, with high definition and multiple camera views, there's a lot of talk now about turning baseball almost into a poker game in terms of pitch tipping with all the kids in the audience and stuff. What are some of your tips for protecting what the batters and what the managers and what the opposition, I don't want to use the name Houston Astros in this room, but about how you address the idea of stealing and getting an advantage on pitcher, and the pitcher been doing better this year. But any coaching tips you would have on hiding or just avoiding tells, that kind of thing for the kids?
I think that Brett Saberhagen over there, Jim. All the Royals out. You didn't name him, though.
Yeah, we got to be careful about poker games too, right? I mean, right now.
Oh, we were talking about Chauncey Billups for a minute.
You know what? I mean, I think with technology, it's moved into a different arena. It used to be, there was no shame in trying to steal somebody's signs. But not through technology, just from sitting in the dugout and watching, what somebody might tip. I mean, it's a rough game, it's really, really competitive. And I will say I didn't think of the way I played as being at any disadvantage. The one thing that I worked the hardest at was, and you're very observant, was hiding the pitches behind my glove, because we all remember Andy Pettitte and those famous glove shots when he was in the World Series and he was just staring, and he was hiding one hand in his glove, and you couldn't see what he was going to throw. But I couldn't do that quite the same way, so I had to hold the glove here and sort of twist and turn. If you notice in the film, I'm constantly turning the ball and flipping it, because the first base coach and the third base coach could see my grip, and if they would put their hands on their knees or touch their hat or something, they might know it's a breaking ball or fastball. So I had to really work hard at disguising pitches and not tipping pitches, and it was tough. I won't lie. That was a big challenge.
Well, it didn't do anything against that filthy cutter that day, so.
the cutter cut, no matter what I did.
Thank you.
Are you a fan of the game today?
I'm a huge fan of the game. I always will be. It's a different game. I wish they would allow pitcher. I love what the Dodgers are doing this postseason, and then allowing the pitchers to kind of work through the lineup through the third time, getting a little bit deeper into the game. I think that's a beautiful aspect of the game, is finding a different way to work through the lineup for the first time through the lineup, the second time, the third time. But yeah, I always have a game on. I'm a huge fan. I think the talent level is amazing, and besides tonight, we'll be tuned in very closely to the World Series.
Does the concentration of wealth bother you? I mean, the Dodgers are great, yes, but $400 million you damn well better be great. 15 guys made more this year than you did in your career, $30 million. And the concentration of wealth is in about half a dozen teams. Does that bother you for the lack of balance in baseball? As a Colorado Rockies fan who will never see a World Series victory as long as I live?
I would like to see every team feeling as though they have a chance. I was on a couple teams, one in Milwaukee. There were a couple teams with the Angels going into spring training where you you know, if you pick these teams up on playground, you go, no fair, let's start over. And so, you know, I don't know what the answer to that is. I know that they're probably going to have some pretty intense negotiations coming up, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a labor disagreement coming up. But it would be nice to see if there was a little bit, if certain teams' fans felt like they had a chance. And it's a deep conversation.
Would you like a salary cap?
I'm not going to take a stand on that. I don't.
They're going to kick you out of the players' union.
I don't know that there needs to be a salary cap. But it would be great to know that every team has some chance to be successful.
The NFL seems to know what they're doing with the salary cap thing. I know one of the hardest things for a producer like Mike is getting all of this in one film. So I know there's some things that are killing you that you left on the cutting floor. What were they?
There was a great anecdote from Wade Boggs about Jim. The first time he faced Jim in the major leagues, he was on the Red Sox at the time, and he said that he kind of read a little bit or saw a little bit of Jim, you know, knew that he had one hand and thought, like, he used his words, he's like, this is gonna be a piece of cake. I'm gonna hit a one hopper up the middle, I'm gonna go 4 for 4. It's gonna be, you know, an easy day at the dish. And literally the first at bat that he had against Jim, he hit a one hopper up the middle, and Jim fielded it and threw him out of first base, like bing, bang, boom. And he said that completely shifted his perspective on Jim. And I love that story because it was such a great example of just the surprising defensive skill that Jim had and just how incredible of an athlete he was.
Any surprise he wore a Red Sox shirt in a Yankees story?
Nothing about Wade Boggs surprises me.
Did you ever try to go, you know, sorry kids, beer for beer with Wade Boggs? Legend has it, he went 107 beers in one day.
One flight.
It was an
73 on the
extended
flight, and it's 34 in
Correct.
Laguna Beach when he got there. Now, it's when he was with the Red Sox, but I guess everybody knows these Wade Boggs beer stories.
Did you ever try to hang?
I sat back there with him, and I can't say that we ever counted, but I know he never stopped. He drank quickly, and he didn't stop through the whole thing.
He never goes to the bathroom, right? I mean,
No.
that was the legend. He, like, never goes to the bathroom. Like, he's going to donate his bladder to science.
It's unbelievable. No, it's unbelievable. And he didn't eat. He didn't eat either.
Jeremy, what about you? What was left on that cutting room floor?
Well, I mean, first of all, as you know,
He doesn't know.
I know very little, but 90 minutes is about as long as you're going to get, right? You know, so you're not leaving as much as you typically do. The one element of the story that I like, and you know, it just works. Sometimes it's, you know, the way I look at these things. I was covering baseball at that time. It's another element of the story that I find interesting, but there's so much. Is that 5 days, 6 days, because they had a 5-day break, but literally Jim's previous start before the no-hitter, whatever that was, August 29th, I think, was in Cleveland against the same team, minus Manny Ramirez, who came up in the interim between, and he had the worst start of his career. And you know, Buck Showalter, who's so great in here, just like all these guys, Wade Boggs. I mean, he tells a great story about Jim. I'll let Jim tell the story of that outing and his interactions with Buck when it was over.
Please do.
No, it's true. I mean, the game 6 days before the previous start came against in Cleveland. Sorry, I keep delving back into Indians. I can't say Guardians. Yeah, and I got shelled. I don't even remember the statistics. I think it was 5 runs, 7 hits. I don't know how many walks. And I would say this, you know, I was too hard on myself. And I hope you're forgiving of yourself sometimes. Like I was sort of, instead of taking failure as a lesson, instead of taking losing as something to bounce back from, I let it seep into my bones sometimes in between starts. And in Cleveland, after that start, I went running through the streets of Cleveland. I left the stadium. I ripped off my Yankee jersey. I put on shorts, a t-shirt, running shoes, and I went running. I left my team. I was so upset. And I tiptoed back into the clubhouse. I found out our team won the game that day. They scored a bunch of runs. And Showalter called me in the office, and he was like, "Where did you go?" I mean,
You left mid-game.
I left
During the game.
Yeah, and I came back, and he was like, "Where did you go? I didn't see you rooting for your team on the bench." I said, "Well, I went running." I was still sweating, and he was like, "You went running through the streets of Cleveland in a Yankee t-shirt?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "We don't do that, you understand me? That's a Steinbrenner rule." And he said something to the fact, "You apologize to your teammates." And so that was the backdrop. That literally was the backdrop to trying to rebuild into the next start and thinking about facing that same team again, only back in New York. And so it really was coming from rock bottom to having that moment after a day game, Yankee Stadium in Manhattan, and looking at my wife and just being in disbelief of how life can change.
That is an unbelievable story. Kids, I think there's something you can take from that. Don't go running mid-game if you suck, but you can bounce back is the lesson here. Yes, sir.
Hi, Jim. How influential was Coach Jimmy Reese in your career?
That's digging really deep.
Reese.
That's you're very well informed in my career.
Babe Ruth's teammate, right?
Babe Ruth's teammate.
Roommate. Yeah.
Yes. Jimmy Reese, for those who probably wouldn't know, he was a coach with the Angels. He was in his late 70s, early 80s when I got there. He had a fungo bat that he cut in half. It was a bat that Reggie Jackson had given him. And Jimmy liked to hit fungos, which means he just threw it up and hit it. And he would take me out in the outfield every day. And I would go through my pitching motion, and he had the timing down just perfect. And he put two hats about 15 yards apart. And I would go through my motion, and he would throw it up, and he would hit a ball like it was a comebacker to the pitcher. And I worked and worked and worked with him, and I really feel like that helped me become the defensive pitcher that I was, because we just worked on it. And he was crazy, he was almost 80 years old, and he'd go out there, and we're in batting practice, and balls are flying around. And if you saw Apocalypse Now, where those bombs are dropping, but they never hit the crazy captain, that's the way it was with Jimmy. Like, the balls were flying, but he never got hit. It was just incredible. But the rhythm of finishing the pitch and then getting my glove back on and being ready, I really give a lot of credit to Jimmy Reese for helping me through that.
He had the famous line, "I wasn't Ruth's teammate, I roomed with his luggage."
Yes, that's right. That's right.
It is astounding how well you defended the position, but one thing I was struck at was left out of the film. No offense.
We're talking a lot about what was left out.
This guy hit 427 in high school. He hit 427. That is correct, right? I have the right number?
That's correct.
That is astounding. You had two major league hits off a statistical improbability, the same pitcher.
That's
Do you
right.
know who that is?
I know his name, yeah, John Lieber.
John Lieber.
Yeah.
How is it possible in your 10-year career to hit the same pitcher? That's remarkable.
I know,
Did you
yeah.
hit through college? You were that good.
I tried to talk my coach into it. He wasn't as believing of my stats as I was. But yeah, I loved to hit when I was a kid. Aluminum bats and the whole thing, and nothing like I had a base hit in a major league game, starting pitching in Wrigley Field, and it's about as good a feeling as you could have. It's incredible.
But it's not just football, it's not just baseball. Some friends here would tell you he's a 6 or a 7 handicap in golf. In golf. 6'7". Oh, I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming.
You
I did
teed it up. Come on, Briggs.
Yeah. Oh, this young man's doing the gesture.
He's got it.
Your question, buddy. Go ahead.
Mr. Abbott, so you seem like a very well athlete, but why did you pick baseball instead of like football and all the other sports? Why baseball?
I don't know. I loved pitching. I loved throwing the ball. I loved trying to, make the ball do different things. I love the pace of pitching, of being out there, of kind of having the game being your responsibility. And I guess, I was good at it. And I loved the fact that it was within my control to be good.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Just keep going. We can take another one.
Mr. Abbott, what thoughts running through your mind in your first MLB pitching appearance?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. It was so unbelievable to walk on a Major League Baseball field and to be on a field with guys who I had. Did anybody collect baseball cards when you were a kid? You guys still collect cards? I collected baseball cards. That's how big of a baseball fan I was growing up. And I had walked on the field, and I had a lot of those guys I was playing against. I had the card when I was a kid. So it was a dream come true. And to be honest, it was a little bit of a blur because I was so excited, and it was just to be on a big league field and wearing a major league uniform. It happened so quickly. It took me a little time to believe that I belonged out there. And that was a big fight in my career, having to believe that you belong on that field.
The word, Jim, disability doesn't seem to fit you. Does the shoe fit?
I always hated the word disability. I guess I don't like any word that seems to be a label. I don't think any of us like to be labeled in preconceived ways, preconceived notions. The fact that you look a certain way doesn't define who you are. And I love Dr. Lightdale. It's a very quick part of the film, but she's a friend of mine. She's a hand surgeon out in Los Angeles at the Children's Hospital in LA. And I love the way that she described it, that seeds are planted in the ground and we all grow in a different way. And I think that encapsulates a lot of the way we think about ourselves.
At one point, a Little League tried to bar you from baseball, correct, as a young man?
A lot of those discussions I didn't hear directly. I know, I did have a team that tried to bunt every time. Every single person that came up, they bunted the ball back at me, which I thought was a little bit blunt, because the signs at the third base coach weren't real subtle. It was like, bunt the ball, bunt the ball. It was pretty obvious what they were trying to do. So, but listen, you put yourself in that situation. You walk on the field. You put yourself on the mound. You got to expect people to try to beat you, and you got to find a way to beat them.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, general question. How many people in the audience are left-handed?
How many people are left-handed in the audience?
Not a lot of us, huh?
Not many.
No.
Must be 10%,
And
right?
to tell you what struck me about the movie was the title, Southpaw. I'm left-handed, and the importance of a left-handed pitcher I know is really important in baseball. So did that have to play a part? Did you think much about being left-handed versus, having, a limb difference?
Sure, that's a great question. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm right-footed. I was a punter. If I ever played soccer, whatever I kicked, I was right-footed and
But
left.
you can alternate. You don't have to be all one side.
You don't have to be all inside.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would have been naturally left-handed. I just maybe learned to do things that way.
Yeah, because left-handed people are known to be more creative because the brain, the two hemispheres, there's a better exchange when you're left-handed. So I'm sure it's definitely an advantage for you.
Thank you.
That's my opinion.
Thank you.
As a lefty.
I love creative. That's a euphemism. A lot of baseball people think goofy.
There's a lot of parents here with young athletes. Any advice for those parents? There's a lot of things coming at them, specialize in one sport, play it all year round. Raising a young athlete, do you have any advice to them?
I think it's important to be well-rounded. I'm really thankful to have grown up in the Midwest where there's seasons. Now I live in California most of the time, and there's a lot of specialization where kids play one sport all year long. And you know, if that's what you love to do, go do it. But it's important to try other things, to move differently, to move muscles differently. And you know, I love Cal Ripken, and Cal Ripken says it's important to put the glove down sometimes and
of all the
something
people.
else. Yeah, exactly. Of all the people.
Go ahead, yes.
Perfect segue. I'm a parent of a 16-year-old PO, and the concern is for not just for myself, but a lot of other parents, the velocity. These are focused on velocity with the pitchers, and that you can't get scholarships, you can't get into college, because if you're not doing over 90, you just have no chance. What are your thoughts about the velocity, and do you think it will balance out over time because of all the injuries that are happening with our young pitchers? It's a really big problem, and I know my son takes his arm care very seriously. He's not so focused on velo, but the recruiters are. So what are your thoughts about that? Thank you.
Very, very well said. Yeah, velocity, unfortunately, has become the measuring stick for advancement in the game. I totally get the pressure that young pitchers feel. Not only velocity, but nowadays the spin rate and the force that's put on an arm to throw every pitch almost at max effort. I think you're right in the fact that that's probably results in the injuries that we see. I don't know the answer to that question. You know, to be honest, it's an unfortunate component of the game now, and you know, I don't know the answer, because scouts, it is how you get seen, and that velocity, I just think you have to take great care with your arm and try to do it in a balanced way, but force, the expectations of throwing the ball 95 miles an hour all the time is tough.
It is. I mean, these kids, they're not even physically developed yet at 17, and the pressure that they put on these kids to pitch at 85, 90, also you have no college career. I just think the environment needs to change, and I don't know how it's going to change unless it changes from the bottom up, from coaches, from high school, and even maybe Little League. So I don't know. Thank you.
Yeah, I wish it was different. You're right.
Couple questions via Instagram, Jim. Toughest hitter you ever faced?
I always say George Brett, and I thank you so much, Mike, for putting in a highlight of striking him out, because I don't remember that.
I think you struck him out twice, actually.
You know, it goes to your point, to the previous question. You know, I couldn't get George Brett out because all I could do was throw one speed. Like I threw a cutter away or a fastball in or a slider, so everything was hard until I learned how to change speeds. I couldn't get George Brett out because you couldn't get him out inside, outside. You had to move him back and forth. And until I learned that, until I became a little bit older in the game and learned how to change speeds, I couldn't get him out.
He shrunk that strike zone a lot.
Yeah, he did. Right? He did. Just
Another one is Shohei Ohtani. I'm sure you saw it. 10 Ks, 6 innings pitched, 0 earned runs, and 3 home runs. One was 460 plus feet. What do you make of this guy? Can you imagine doing both things at the highest level of the greatest game?
No, I can't. I had goosebumps. Literally watching that game, I was out to dinner with some friends, and I felt chills. I can't believe what we are watching, you know? And what I love about him pitching too is you see sometimes when he's DHing and he just hits and he goes through his routine, as magnificent as it is, as otherworldly as it is, it almost seems easy. It almost seems like he's playing a different game than anybody else. When he's pitching and hitting, I love he's taking off his hat, he's brushing his brow. You see the effort that's involved for him to do what he's doing. And it's just so difficult. Baseball is a game of routine. Baseball is a game of, like that no-hitter, of building yourself up again. He doesn't get that chance. He's constantly on. And it's unfathomable to do what he's doing without the ability to create a routine, you know, physically and mentally.
Nobody knows the history of the game better. Jeremy, was that the greatest single game ever played?
Look, I mean, I've heard a lot of people talk about it who know more about specific games, and people talk about Rick Wise, the no-hitter, 2 home runs as a pitcher, as you're also throwing a no-hitter. That's pretty good. But, you know, we're talking about a guy who's just so dominant as a hitter and so great as a pitcher at the same time. You know, there are only a few people you can compare him to in the history of baseball who've excelled at both. You know, whether you're talking about Babe Ruth or talking about Martin Dihigo, the great Cuban. It's just a few guys, but to put it together at the same time that way, it's hard to argue against.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're to look at things with the advanced metrics and all that, I'm not sure. There might be some games. I know, just in terms of pure pitching, people say that Kerry Wood's strikeout game in '98 was like the greatest pitching performance ever. That's a regular season thing. But it's hard to argue against it.
Speaking of greatness, when you're making this film, Mike, what astounded you the most about the athleticism of Jim?
I think, well, 2 things. One was just switching of the glove, right? Like the switching of the glove was something that was a total pioneering effort. Like there was no YouTube video that you could look up to say, how do I throw and catch with the same hand? It was just complete ingenuity, and the ability to do it so fast and so effortlessly to the point where you don't even notice it happening is just crazy. And I feel like when I tell people about Jim, and like, you know, maybe I'll say, oh, I've worked on this film about Jim Abbott. I'm like, oh, he was a pitcher in the major leagues. And I'm like, he used to like switch his glove, and he threw and he switched his glove, and they're like, oh, like that's the thing that people above anything else recognize. So I think that was one of the things that impressed me, and I think just the football thing too. Like when I saw that football footage of him in high school, I was like, what? You know, played quarterback too, and also kicked butt doing that. So impressive guy.
600 yards, 6 touchdowns in his final 3 games.
Yeah, he did all right.
He wasn't just an average player.
All
right. YouTube learning that glove switch. Yeah. That is remarkable. How can you take us through how you learned that? And obviously there was no one around to show you that.
Oh, you know, it's just playing catch with my dad. I wanted to play baseball. He bought me, I joke that he bought me a plastic glove at the local drugstore. I don't think he saw a future in it. And we just went out, and it was trial and error. You know, I did all kinds of things. I threw the ball in the air, I dropped the glove, I tried all these different things, and till ultimately I got to that point where I could just kind of turn the glove here, and I should have brought my glove with me. But you know, going through the years, I met a young gal in Colorado who was a catcher, and she was missing a hand. And I swear to God, she was 5 times faster than I, and I was like blinking an eye. She like threw the glove somehow, and all of a sudden the ball was in her hand and it was gone. And she was throwing people out at second base. And so I don't know that I ever met any of those kids who do it exactly the same, but somehow they find a way to get it done.
I'm glad Mike brought it up. It's truly astounding. Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, a little aside on pro baseball today. There are a lot of Little League coaches here and Little League players here. I was lucky enough to coach Little League. After every game, win or lose, the boys would shake hands, and it still happens today. It happens in pro basketball. It happens in hockey when they beat each other up. It happens in football. You're no hitter. I was almost in tears. Why didn't that team come over and shake your hand? And it doesn't happen today. In pro baseball, they don't congratulate each other, and those other 3 sports they do. I can imagine that, and maybe you folks can have some influence on pro baseball today.
I've never thought about it.
I've never thought about it either.
Jeremy?
Oh.
And you're basically saying just baseball's different. I mean, if you're asking me, they play a lot of games. I mean, it's 162 games. You can go shake the hands after every game. That's going to take a lot of time. I mean,
Even the playoffs then.
yeah, but even Jim knows this better than I do. The culture of baseball, and this has only really changed almost since Jim retired 20 plus years ago. You weren't even supposed to talk to the other guys. You weren't supposed to consort with the other guys. I was listening to Harold Reynolds tell a story yesterday, Tim Kirchin, about Dick Williams' first manager. He saw him like George Brett said to him, the base pass, like, nice job, kid. And Harold was afraid to say thank you because Dick Williams would have screamed at him, benched him if he saw him talking to a player on another team. I mean, wasn't that the culture?
Yeah.
But in hockey, they beat each other up. And they shake hands.
Yeah, it's just a different game.
But in hockey, it's the end of a series, right? It's not the end of a...
Right, every game.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Hi, Jim. As good as you were, if you had 2 hands, you think you'd be where you are? You would have tried as hard as you did?
No, I don't think so. I think there was an ambition and a drive, and I'll be honest, it wasn't always pretty. It wasn't the most flattering side of myself that was incredibly competitive and yearning for success that I think came from being different.
Great, thank you. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you.
You're cool with that word now, right?
What's that?
Inspiration. You didn't used to like it.
Yeah, I mean...
You're still not.
Listen, I mean, to be called inspiring, what can you say? Of course, yeah, I mean, the fact that people have attached themselves to my story and found meaning in it is, of course, always going to be profoundly important to me. But I just want people to know that I was doing what I love to do, you know, and I feel like the pursuit of that is what is inspiring.
Perfect. And I feel like that is a perfect place to end.
Thank you.
Jim Abbott, Jeremy Schaap, Mike Farrell. Thank you guys, and thank all of you.